I Don't Love My Husband. A story by Eva, 2025. My name's Eva. I'm 28 years old. I live in a mid-sized apartment in downtown Seattle with my husband Harvey. We've been married for 3 years, and I don't love him. It feels strange to say that out loud, or, well, even to think it so clearly, but it's true. People look at us and see a stable couple. Two adults who figured life out. We post pictures together on anniversaries, laugh at dinner parties, and hold hands in public just long enough for it to look convincing. But at home, when the lights are off, we sleep like strangers, quiet, polite, miles apart under the same blanket. One morning, it's 7 a.m., when my alarm buzzes. Harvey's already in the shower. He always wakes up before me. Military precision, even though he's never been in the military. He says mornings are when he feels most in control. I let him have that. Control. It seems to be the only thing that makes him feel alive. The sound of running water fills the apartment. Our bathroom door never fully closes. The wood expanded after a leak last year. I told him we should fix it. He said it adds character. I scroll through my phone in bed. Emails, social media, endless noise. Everyone's moving, hustling, thriving. Meanwhile, I'm here, staring at a screen, wondering when my life started feeling like a carefully designed waiting room. When Harvey walks out of the bathroom, he smells like mint and aftershave. He nods toward me. Morning, he says. That's our ritual. One word, neutral tone, no eye contact. I reply, morning, and force a smile. We don't kiss. We haven't in months. Breakfast is silent, except for the hum of the fridge. He drinks black coffee. I drink mine with oat milk. He reads stock updates. I scroll through old photos I can't bring myself to delete. When he leaves for work, he kisses the air next to my cheek, habit, not affection, and says, "See you tonight." I nod. See you. The door clicks shut, and the quiet rushes in like a wave. That's when I breathe again. 2. How it all started. We met 4 years ago at a friend's engagement dinner. He was stable, kind, put together. The kind of man my mom used to say was husband material. At the time, I had just ended a messy relationship with someone unpredictable, someone who loved me too loudly and left me too fast. So when Harvey came along, calm, predictable, financially secure, he felt like the opposite of chaos. He felt safe. We started seeing each other casually, coffee dates, polite dinners, no sparks, but no heartbreak either. When he proposed a year later, I said yes, not because I was in love, but because I was tired of searching, tired of heartbreak, tired of starting over. My parents were thrilled. He's a good man, my mom said. He'll take care of you. That sentence echoed in my head for weeks. He'll take care of you. It sounded comforting, until it didn't. 3. The wedding. We got married in April 2022. A small ceremony, white roses, string lights, a playlist of love songs I didn't feel connected to. I remember standing there, looking at Harvey in his navy suit, and thinking, he looks like someone I could build a life with, not fall in love with, not grow old with, just build a life with. The vows felt heavy in my mouth. I repeated them word for word, my voice steady, my hands trembling. People cried, clapped, smiled. When he kissed me, it was soft and careful, like sealing a contract, not starting a forever. 4. The first year of marriage was quiet. He worked long hours at a tech company. I was freelancing as a designer from home. We settled into routines, grocery shopping on Sundays, dinner at 7, movie nights on Fridays. On paper, it looked perfect. But I remember sitting across from him one night, watching him scroll through his phone while eating dinner, and realizing that we'd spoken less than 50 words to each other that day. I tried to start conversations about work, travel, the future, but every answer was short, tidy, final. He wasn't cruel, just emotionally unavailable. Sometimes, I'd catch him staring at me with this distant look, as if he was trying to convince himself that we were enough. Maybe we were both pretending. 5. The apartment. Our apartment is modern. Open floor plan, all gray and glass. It looks like something out of a real estate ad. Beautiful, sterile, untouched. We bought it in 2023. Harvey said it was a smart investment. I agreed, even though I secretly wanted something smaller, warmer, a place with creaky floors and yellow light, a place that felt lived in. Now it just feels like a museum of everything we thought marriage was supposed to look like. There's a photo on the wall from our honeymoon in Vancouver, both of us smiling, his arm around me. Every time I look at it, I remember how cold that day was, how he kept checking emails between photos, how I kept pretending not to notice. 6. The confession I never made. There's something about silence that starts to eat at you after a while. It fills every corner of your day, until even your thoughts start whispering back. I think the first time I realized I didn't love him was during a storm. The rain was pounding outside, and I was sitting on the couch, watching lightning flicker across the windows. Harvey was asleep on the recliner, laptop open, half a spreadsheet glowing on the screen. I looked at him, his jawline, his steady breathing, his hand loosely hanging off the chair, and I felt nothing. No affection, no anger, just emptiness, and that scared me more than hate ever could. 7. The escape. Sometimes, when he's at work, I go to a cafe 2 blocks away and sit there for hours. I tell him I'm working, but mostly I'm just existing. I watch people come and go, couples laughing, students typing, strangers brushing hands while reaching for napkins. There's something soothing about watching lives that aren't yours. A few months ago, I started talking to a barista named Mason. He's younger, 24, easy smile, tattoo on his wrist that says still learning. He makes me laugh, not in a romantic way, not yet, but in a way that reminds me I'm still human. Sometimes he asks about my husband. I always say, he's busy. That's true, but not the full truth. I wonder what Mason would think if I told him that the hardest part about being married isn't loneliness, it's the guilt of feeling lonely next to someone who's done nothing wrong. 8. The breaking point. Last month, Harvey forgot my birthday. He didn't mean to. He just got caught up in meetings. He texted me late that night. Sorry, rough day. Happy birthday, babe. I stared at the message for a while before locking my phone and going to bed. He came home after midnight, kissed my forehead, and fell asleep instantly. I lay there, wide awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling like a ghost. The next morning, I made pancakes for him like I always do. He said, "You didn't have to." I smiled. I know, and that's when I realized something. Love isn't just about staying, it's about wanting to stay. And I don't want to anymore. 9. Routine. The morning after my birthday felt exactly like every other morning, and that was the worst part. Harvey left early, suit pressed, travel mug in hand, the smell of cologne lingering long after the door clicked shut. I stood in the kitchen, still in pajamas, holding my coffee. The silence was so thick, it felt like another person in the room. I opened my laptop to start work, but the cursor just blinked at me, a tiny pulse, like a reminder that I was still here, even if I didn't know what here meant anymore. At 9, my phone buzzed, a calendar reminder, 3-year anniversary next week. I laughed under my breath, not because it was funny, but because I honestly didn't know what to do with that information. 10. The call around noon. My mother called. "Eva, I was just thinking about you. How's married life?" I stared at the wall, counting the little cracks near the ceiling. "It's fine," I said. "Busy. You sound tired." "I'm okay, Mom. Just work." She sighed softly. "You know, I worry about you. You have such a good husband. Stable, responsible. Don't take that for granted." "I know," I said. The words tasted metallic. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, staring at my reflection in the black laptop screen. Maybe stability was what everyone else wanted for me, but stability without love feels like standing still while pretending it's progress. 11. The anniversary dinner. The following week, Harvey suggested dinner at a new restaurant downtown. I wore a navy dress I hadn't touched in months. He complimented me. "You look nice," the way you'd comment on weather. At the table, candlelight flickered between us. He talked about a potential promotion, about quarterly goals, about a new smartwatch he was considering buying. I nodded, smiled in the right places. My fork scraped the plate too loudly once, and we both flinched. Halfway through dinner, he said, "You've been quiet lately. Everything okay?" I wanted to tell him the truth, that I felt like a guest in my own marriage. Instead, I said, "Just tired." He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. His palm was warm, firm, unfamiliar. "I appreciate you," he said. It was supposed to sound loving, I think, but it landed like an apology neither of us understood. 12. The neighbor. A week later, I met our new neighbor, Mrs. Ramirez, a retired teacher with bright scarves and louder opinions. She caught me in the hallway, holding groceries. "New face on the floor," she said. "You married or single?" "Married," I answered automatically. She smiled. "Good. Marriage keeps the world steady." I nodded politely, but her words lingered long after she'd gone. Maybe the world stayed steady because people like me kept pretending. 13. The rain. One evening in late spring, Seattle did what it does best. It rained nonstop. Harvey was out at a conference dinner. I sat by the window, listening to the steady rhythm against the glass. There's something about rain that makes silence louder. I pulled out an old sketchbook, one I hadn't touched since college, and started drawing without thinking. Lines became shapes, shapes became faces. When I looked down, I realized I'd drawn myself, except she wasn't me now. She looked younger, freer, someone who still believed in possibility. I closed the book and whispered, "Where did you go?" The next morning, Harvey noticed the sketchbook on the table. "You drawing again?" he asked. "Just doodling." He smiled faintly. "Good hobby, to keep your mind busy." He meant well, but the way he said it made it sound like a pastime, not a part of who I was. 14. The conversation we almost had one Sunday afternoon. We were cleaning. He vacuumed. I folded laundry. Out of nowhere, he said, "You ever think about having kids?" I froze. We'd never talked about it seriously. "I don't know," I said. "Do you?" He shrugged. "Maybe someday. It'd make the place feel fuller." The word fuller stuck with me, as if life was a room, and he just needed to fill the empty spaces. I wanted to say, maybe we should fill the space between us first, but I didn't. Instead, I said, "We'll see," and that was the end of it. 15. Mason. The cafe became my second home. Mason still worked there, still kind, still curious, still everything Harvey wasn't. One day, he asked, "You ever think about doing something spontaneous?" I laughed. "Like what?" "I don't know. A road trip, a new job, moving somewhere wild." I stared into my coffee. "I used to. Not so much anymore." He looked at me for a long moment. "You talk like you're older than you are." "Maybe I am," I said softly. He didn't ask more, and I didn't offer. It wasn't about romance. It was about feeling seen, even for 5 minutes. 16. Cracks. By summer, the cracks in our marriage were no longer invisible. We argued about small things, dishes, bills, forgotten errands. None of it was really about dishes. It was about distance. We'd built a life so organized that there was no room left for love. One night, after a pointless argument, Harvey said quietly, "I feel like you're somewhere else, even when you're right here." I didn't answer, because he was right. 17. Therapy. In August, he suggested couples therapy. I agreed, partly out of guilt, partly out of curiosity. Our therapist, Dr. Lewis, was calm and direct. "You both seem polite," she said during our first session, "but politeness isn't connection." Harvey folded his arms. "We don't fight much. That's not always good, she replied. Sometimes silence says more than shouting. For weeks, we sat in that small office, trying to unlearn our practiced neutrality. He talked about stress. I talked about emptiness. One day, Dr. Lewis asked, "Eva, what do you need from this marriage?" The question caught me off guard. I opened my mouth, then closed it. Finally, I said, "I don't know anymore." Harvey looked at me then, really looked at me, and for the first time in years, I saw pain in his eyes, not anger, just quiet realization. 18. Autumn. By the time leaves started turning, we were living more like roommates than spouses. We cooked separately, slept apart when we could blame it on work, moved around each other like polite ghosts. Friends still invited us to dinners. We went, smiled, performed. Afterward, in the car, we sat in silence. Once I asked, "Are you happy?" He stared out the windshield. "I don't think about it." That was the truest thing either of us had said in months. 19. The letter. In October, I found an old email draft in my account titled, "If I Ever Leave." I'd written it 2 years earlier, never sent it. It wasn't a goodbye letter, more like a list of things I wanted to remember, if I ever forgot myself. The first line read, "Don't settle for quiet sadness, just because it looks like peace." I reread that line 5 times. Then I closed the laptop and cried for the first time in months. The talk. 2 weeks later, I told Harvey we needed to talk. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, the same one we bought together from an online sale. "I'm not happy," I said. He nodded slowly. "I know." Silence stretched between us. "I don't think I love you," I said finally. He exhaled, long and shaky. I figured. I just didn't want to hear it. "I don't want to hurt you." "You already did," he said, not cruelly, just honestly. We sat there for hours, saying almost nothing. At some point, he reached for my hand. I let him. "I don't know what happens next," he said. "Neither do I." 21. Now it's January 2025. The world outside feels both new and old, like we're all pretending we learned something from the last few years, but still chasing the same certainties. Harvey and I still live in the same apartment. For now, we're figuring things out. Money, logistics, what it means to untangle a shared life. He sleeps in the guest room most nights. We talk more now than we did when we were fine. Sometimes we share coffee in the mornings. 2 people learning how to be honest without breaking completely. He asked me once if I regret marrying him. I told him no, because regret implies you knew better. I didn't. I was just young and afraid of being alone. 22. The bittersweet end. Last week, I passed by the cafe and saw Mason laughing with another customer. I waved. He waved back. I kept walking. At home, Harvey was making dinner, pasta, the one recipe he actually enjoys cooking. He looked up and said, "I thought you'd be late." "I came straight home," I said, and for a moment, we both smiled. Tired, gentle, knowing smiles. We may never love each other the way people write about in books, but maybe love isn't always fireworks. Sometimes it's honesty. Sometimes it's finally telling the truth and letting it sit between you like a fragile peace offering. Tonight, I'm sitting by the same window I used to stare out of, rain tracing lines down the glass. The city hums below, alive and indifferent. I don't know what the future holds. Separation papers, maybe friendship, maybe something else entirely. But I know this. For the first time in years, I feel real. And maybe that's the beginning of love. Not for someone else, but for myself. My name's Eva. I'm 28 years old. I live in Seattle. I don't love my husband, but I'm learning what love really means.